before a party. Yeah.
So this is protecting you from taking a trip down a hole in the ground here, okay? This is one of those vertical raises at the end of a crosscut, and this is our method of getting the iron out of a space like this. Remember, gravity is free, this stuff is heavy, so once we mine it, we're gonna send it down a hole in the ground to the level of the train tracks where there's a guy waiting to load it into an ore car and get it out of here, okay? Pretty interesting stuff. Now, we use a method of mining here called cut and fill. All right, our first job is to take a cut out until we run into that waste rock. Then we take a secondary cut, and eventually we get to a situation like the one that we're standing in right now, and our ceiling is 20 feet away from our floor, and we need to somehow reach that stuff that's up above us. All right, scaffolding and ladders are not going to be the most efficient way to do that. So we are going to build up cribbing like this around these raises that we've created to get the iron out, and then we're going to fill up our floor with waste rock. To bring our floor closer to the top of our mine. So we take a cut, we fill in the floor. We take a cut, we fill in the floor. And you continue that process over and over again until you're about 20 feet below the level up above you, all that infrastructure, train tracks and things. And so that waste rock, is essentially recycled from level to level. And it comes from upper levels. It's set down here through a hole in the ceiling called a winze. And in this space, the winze is actually just behind that column over there. And you level out the waste rock. Quite an ingenious process. Yep, but the cribbing prevents that waste rock from filling in your raise, your method of getting the iron out of here. Other questions?
So, would there have ever been a time where this wasn't here and there was just a big dangerous open hole?
Most of the time.
Really?
Most of the time. You don't build cribbing up like this till you're ready to fill up your floor.
So how do they market it so nobody gets?
Well, these guys get to know their space, so they have an idea of where these are. I've heard stories about how they could tell where the holes in the floor were, because of course this space didn't quite look as it does now, right? You have to rely on senses other than sight, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But these would have been fresh cut pine timber. So I've heard that if you got too close to a hole in the ground, there'd be a little bit of a breeze coming up, right? Because we have an air cycle that happens. And if you smelled Christmas, that's how you knew you were getting too close to one of these holes in the ground. For the most part, when you get to a space like this, you're going to stay relatively close to the same spot. If you're a driller, you're spending your entire shift working into the same piece of iron. So you're not moving around here until you have to get out of here. Now, it is somebody's job, of course, to move the iron to the holes in the ground, okay? So you're going to do so with relatively little lighting, which is a perfect segue into our next adventure, if you will. I'd like to adjust the lighting for you a little bit to give you some context for what it actually looked like down here. Does that sound like a plan? Yep. Excellent. Follow me around here to the fence and these light switches. You don't sound very excited that I'm about to adjust your lighting. If you could make a nice U shape around me. Make sure everybody can see me, and please make sure you are standing next to someone you are comfortable standing next to in the dark.
Where are you going?
That's always a test for folks to see who they're comfortable with. Okay, so I am going to take you back in time. I'd like to take you back to the Soudan mine in the late 1800s. Is everybody ready? All right, here we go. All right, if you have a screen on right now, if you could dim that for me, thank you. Anything that's producing light, please make it stop producing light. They didn't have fancy cell phones back in the late 1800s. There's somebody, there we go. Okay, folks, if it was, late 1800s, we're talking like 1890s or so in the Soudan mine, and you were going to work, this is what your commute would look like. You would ride the cage in the dark like this. Once you got to the level you were working on, you would walk up the drift in the dark like this. Remember, they didn't get a train ride. They could put their foot on the rail, they'd put their hand out, and they would feel their way to the space where their ladder was. Once they got to their manway, they then had a ladder climb ahead of them, or a series of ladder climbs. And only when the first person got up to the stove would they light their candle. Isn't it impressive how much candle, or how much light a candle can produce when it's not competing with anything? You're good, you're good. Lighting is weird down here, it's fine. Isn't it amazing how far this candle can go? Yeah, I have candles in my house, but I have them there because they smell good. I don't use them for lights. All right, things were different back then. Now, why do you think you're not going to light your candle till you get up to this space?
Burn out too fast.
It was burn out too fast. What did you say over here?
Limited time.
Limited time.
They're charged per candle.
You got it. They're paying for it.
Saving money.
Money. It all comes down to time and money. Always. All right? These guys are contract miners. Okay? You're on a team. Your captain is going to be the one negotiating the price per ton that you're going to get as a team for iron, sending it out of this space. That means you're being paid monthly, okay, and you're being paid based on quota. You're not paid during your commute. You're not paid during lunchtime, any of that stuff. All right, and as contract miners, you are responsible for bringing some of your equipment, like contractors today, right? Now, U.S. Steel, generous U.S. Steel, would give you some of the tools to do this job. Kind of them, right? You get it, not candles. You don't need light to do this work. They'll give you drills, right? That's a necessary tool. They will give you a ride in and out of the mine, and they'll give the iron a ride out of here. Generous, right?
That's it.
That's it. What was not on that list?
Hand tools.
Candles.
Candles.
Okay, so yeah, candles. We're a drilling and blasting operation. I told you the company provided the drills. Who provides the blasting agents? You do. Okay. What else? How about hearing protection? How about a cap to keep the dust out of your hair? Right? Anything like that, you are in charge of providing. Now these guys came here from over 20 different countries to do this work. All right? And they came here because, you know, this town offered their kids an opportunity to go to school. Okay? They didn't come here just because, you know, the work was any easier than anything they were doing where they came from, but their kids got to go to school. And that was a big deal to them. All right? So all you young people, I'm looking at some of you on this tour right now. I'm going to step out of my teacher soapbox for a little bit. Is that okay with you? Okay? When you're not feeling like you want to do your math homework, I want you to remember the guys that worked in spaces like this to give you that right to do your math homework. Okay? Adults, you're all hearing this too? Okay, give me a thumbs up if you're hearing me right now. All right, there we go. Okay? Do your homework. It's important. Okay? Good stuff. Now, we are not working by candlelight forever. That's good news. Eventually, we switched to carbide lamps in the 19-teens. And I'm stuck on the fence. Carbide lamps are pretty cool. They operate on a chemical reaction between calcium carbide and water. That produces a, thank you, Pete, produces acetylene gas out of the top of this reflector here. So imagine a 2.5-inch bright white flame sticking out of the top of my cap. Perhaps you've seen pictures of it in place of a candle sticking out of my cap. Okay? Now the cool thing about this is the reflector. Right now my candlelight is all over this room. If I put the reflector behind it, I can guide my light. And all of a sudden, I can see that there was a hole in the ground right behind me. One of those 14 raises in this space that you had to try to avoid while doing this work. Okay? Now in the 1930s, we got the invention of early batteries. All right, I'd like to show you what it looked like down here in the 1930s. What do you think?
There you go.
A little bit better? Okay, not bad.